Hey neighbor, welcome back to Beyond ARTV. My name is John. It's time to review the 8th and final double album, Heaven and Hell, by the Canadian alternative metal and pop punk band Sum 41. Sum 41 played a vital role in my music discovery, in developing my taste, and for that reason, and many others, I will always be grateful to them. Albums like All Killer No Filler, Chuck, Does This Look Infected were my middle school rotation as I continued following the band through the highs, the lows, the in-betweens, the uncertainties. I discovered so many other amazing groups that it became clear that Sum 41, at least for me, were a gateway drug. You have to believe me when I say that. I mean zero disrespect with that statement. Some people will take gateway band the wrong way. But Sum 41 are very good at what they do, and they're able to translate that live. I had the opportunity to see them with Pierce the Veil in 2017, and I'll always be grateful for that moment. Anyways, Heaven and Hell, how did this double album turn out? The one that they have been hyping up for over 2 years by the time it finally dropped at the tail end of March 2024. One half Heaven, it's gonna be pop punk bangers, throwing it back. Hell, the other side, it's going to be this alternative metal slide that we've been going into for the past couple of albums, 13 Voices, my personal favorite, Order and Decline. Well, for diehard fans of the band, I think you will be sufficiently happy. In fact, you may just be stoked on what they've delivered with Heaven and Hell. But for anyone like me, wanting a little bit more to actually latch onto, a little bit more musical substance, lyrical substance that doesn't necessarily just devolve into relationship teenagery discussions, you might be left feeling disappointed. Back it up just a second, hit the rewind button. We're not going all negative on Heaven and Hell because I truly do not think this is a bad album. It's just unfortunately a little bit tasteless. I don't mean tasteless as in your uncle just made a racist joke at Thanksgiving dinner and now everything's awkward and you're not sure if you should call him out or just excuse yourself and fuck off to the room upstairs. I'm talking about just one of these moments in time where you're just like, I want to love this more than I actually do. I was a little bit worried after hearing the lead single Landmines because while that song is very catchy, it's a fleeting high, and I'm definitely not a fan of the excessive millennial whooping on that track. It felt overproduced, underwritten, and very formulaic, kind of MGK-ish pop punk, and my worries were definitely realized even further as I listened through the Heaven side of the record for the first time and saw how watered down and almost TikTokified version of pop punk some of the tracks like Dopamine had become. It starts to feel a little bit underwhelming when you realize they're kind of a one-trick pony with the very similar chord progressions. A lot of the tracks, especially on the Heaven side of this new album, sound a lot alike. I mean, there is weight in the title of 3 of the 4 first songs on the record. I feel like I'm Leon S. Kennedy. Wait. Oh, you didn't know that the S stood for Sum 41? Some Resi fan you are. Let's flip to greener pastures, because the Hell side of this album, which is the second half, unfortunately, you have to sit through a bunch of filler content, although I have to shout out Johnny Libertine, a hell of a track that definitely turns up the punk, and I would have loved to have seen more of that energy. The opener from the Heaven side as well, Waiting on a Twist of Fate, is just exceptionally done. It's Sum 41 at their best. But on the Hell side, I can confidently say, by far, my favorite of the LP. And the better songs are here. I think that Sum 41, maybe hot take here, they're way better at alternative metal than they are at pop punk. Maybe that's just my favorite brand of pain for pleasure, but I likes my Sum 41 a little bit heavy. Rise Up was the second single and the first from the Hell side, and I was definitely way more of a fan of that. Dave Brown sound really gets to unleash on this half, and I just feel that the drumming, the production, everything was a little too neutered and held back on Heaven. With Hell, we definitely have familiar volcanic eruptions in terms of where some of the solos are placed. You can see where it's coming, but it still tastes good. House of Liars really caught my attention with that screaming post-hardcore drive that might make you think of My Chemical Romance and the Black Parade. I Don't Need Anyone, despite its lack of lyrical finesse, is another winner in my books. I love the guitar edge and the drum groove that it sinks into. They're not all winners in this section, but there's definitely a lot more of a magnetism that I'm feeling. Word of advice is to not overthink this thing, because I do think that you get a lot more from it if you're just able to flip that switch somehow. I kind of ruined it for myself because I sat down and thought about it for a little bit too long with the fact that they had at least 2 to 3 years to write this thing, and it's like, really? This is all we came up with for the lyrics on some of these tracks? Just kind of this heartbreak, oh girl. It's like, dude, you're 40-something, you're all 40-something. I'm not buying the teenageriness. But if you don't overthink it, if you're not listening too closely to the lyrics, I think it'll slap a lot more. And if you're a Sum 41 diehard, once again, I don't see too many people just up in arms, rioting in the streets like, how dare you do this to us? How dare you leave us on this note? Do not brush past the final song, their final song, How the End Begins, because that is just a landmark moment for a career. It's definitely a flag being planted in concrete. You know that the roots are strong. The guitars are fantastic. I think Derek sounds like he's at his best vocally. I didn't necessarily care for some of the kind of processed, crushed screams that have been a trend on recent Sum albums. Just why isn't Dave doing those screams like he does live? But despite the shortcomings of Heaven and Hell, I still found great tracks like this. So check the description if you want to see all of my favorites, least favorites, everything like that. I'm going to rate Sum 41's final album a 3 out of 5, and I would love to know what you guys are thinking. Hit me with your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for checking out my review of Heaven and Hell. If you want to check out more of my Sum 41 content, which I know you do, there's cards on screen floating around me. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe for the love of music, and I'll see you next time.